Hi, I'm TG.
And I'm Hawi,
And together we're Awazi. We're back at it again for the third episode of Sis How Do I?
Video 3.
Yes, sir. And this week, we wanted to take the time to talk about a very serious topic. Considering what our country is going through at the moment, we feel this is the perfect time to talk about gender-based violence and sexual violence.
Me and TG are very much big about being transparent and being open, and this topic is really much dear to our hearts. So the reason why we wanted to bring it to the forefront was so that we can stop the shaming and normalize conversations concerning gender-based violence and sexual assault.
Absolutely.
Gender-based violence is a harmful act on an individual against their will based on their gender. It can be done physically, emotionally, psychologically, as well as sexually.
The multi-country study on women's health and domestic violence against women by the WHO suggested that nearly a third of women aged between 15 and 49 had experienced either physical or sexual violence.
Very few survivors of gender-based violence asked formal agencies for authorities for help. The most often mentioned were local leaders, by 15% of women who had experienced physical partner violence, health services 4%, police 2%, and the courts 1%.
Among those women who did not seek help, 53% said they feared the consequences or had been threatened, and 37% said they considered the violence normal or not serious.
39% of the women have never talked to anyone about the physical violence.
There are extremely few resources to help survivors of gender-based violence in Ethiopia. Noticing the gap in the system, Setawit, a non-profit organization established in 2016, created the Gender-Based Violence Hotline to serve individuals and the community at large with the aim to provide information, psychological counseling, and appropriate referral for callers named Alengta.
The hotline has a survivor-centered approach and provides information, education, in-depth counseling, and referral services for callers focusing on rape, domestic violence, sexual harassment, stalking, inappropriate physical touch, marital rape, acid attack, confinement, forced marriage, verbal, psychological abuse, child marriage, female genital mutilation, and human trafficking.
The Survivors Hotline as a communication tool plays vital roles in providing first response to callers by allowing callers to speak freely about sensitive and private feelings without embarrassment,
Linking the caller with appropriate service provision facilities,
empowering and helping individuals in making decisions,
offering support and counseling for callers,
providing feedback data to the government and other agencies as a way of tracking trends, addressing misconceptions, and measuring the impact of gender-based violence.
If you or a loved one has experienced any form of abuse, please call the hotline number 6388.
Welcome back. I hope you guys found that somewhat informative and insightful. And if you ever need to get advice or information or referrals, that's definitely the place to call to.
Absolutely. Now with each other.
Yes. So, in your experiences as a woman in this society, what are the things that you have noticed, especially around gender-based violence?
Ooh, this one's tough because one thing I think that doesn't get talked about a lot has to do with gender-based violence in work settings or having to do with people of power. I say that because 49% of women have dealt with gender-based violence in the work area, and so that's a staggering amount. And it's half. It's basically half. So here you wonder, and it's scary because these are people that you think are supposed to help you. These are people who you're supposed to go to, and the fact that they have committed this assault on you, you're just like, well, how do I talk about it? And how do I speak up? And even if I do speak up, who's gonna believe me? And as someone who has experienced that with a person of authority, you're kind of just like, and this is hard for me because this is the first time I'm speaking about it, you kind of just feel like, well, I hope that this is something that we can normalize. I hope this is something, normalize meaning the conversation, and being able to just say, this is what happened to me, and being able to hold those individuals accountable so that it no longer keeps happening. What about you?
For me, it's slightly different. I haven't had to work around a lot of authority in my life, but if you remember, about a year into coronavirus, there were a lot of statistics about a lot of children staying home from school and having to live through sexual violence and sexual abuse from members of their own families, from neighbors, fathers, and things like that. And so I saw this immense outrage from society of being like, how can someone harm children? How can someone do this to children? But for me and for the people around me who have these conversations often, it really wasn't a surprise. Mm-hmm. It is something that I've lived through myself. And so we have the structure of society of the worst and the most gruesome things that we do. We don't necessarily talk about it. We sweep it under the rug and we try to pretend that we are holier than them. Mm-hmm. And this is not something that Ethiopians do. And this is very foreign, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As opposed to really addressing the issues. I can prove this to any of our listeners by saying there's that one old man in your neighborhood that all the kids are told to not go talk to or not go spend time with. Mm. But nobody really goes and tells that old man to stay away from their children.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We know it's happening. We just would rather pretend it wasn't happening.
And I think the biggest thing too in terms of these topics is the fact that people think that it happens with strangers or happens with people that you don't know, when the truth is it happens in the homes of our family members, our friends, people that we love. So this is much more prevalent within domestic situations than it is outside of them.
Yes. Statistics do show that intimate partners and people that we know are more likely to cause us harm and to, cause gender-based violence as opposed to complete strangers.
Absolutely. With that being said, thank you guys for rocking with us. We'll be back in the next 2 weeks, but next Wednesday we will be having a radio version of the same topic concerning gender-based violence as well as sexual assault.
So make sure to tune in because we will have other professionals to give us their perspective on this conversation from their professional points of view.
Do make sure to subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms. That's Awaze Media, AWAZE-MEDIA.
As usual, stay hydrated, make good decisions.
Awaze out.
Bye.